going on, everyone? Welcome back to the comeback journey. It's my first Zoom podcast. Got my boy Joel Stewart here with me.
What up?
We go back a few years.
Yeah?
I hit him up to be on the podcast. I had no idea that he moved to Florida.
Yeah.
I was like, do you want to do it at my house or your house? And you were like, well.
Yeah. Well, you were like, oh, I'm trying to keep social distance. I'm like, I'm pretty distant. Not as distant as I could be.
Yeah, just about. All right, man. So let's get it started. So you're in Florida right now. Did you grow up in San Diego?
Yeah. So I was born in San Diego, and then I pretty much was born and raised there my whole life, with the exception of the ages of 4 to 8. I lived in New Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah, so my dad was in the Navy for like 20 years, and we moved out to Santa Fe when I was 4, and we lived there for a couple of years, and then moved to Albuquerque for a couple of years, and then went back to San Diego when I was 8, and then he retired when I was like 10, I think, 10 or 11, so we stayed in San Diego, from there on out, and then, yeah. And then my parents moved to Montana like 3-ish years ago. And I moved out there less than a year ago, and I lived out there for like 8 months. And then I've been in Miami for like a month now. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Miami.
What's that?
How do you like Miami?
It's hard to tell because everything's on lockdown,
True.
So as far as the weather, it's like super, super hot all the time, which is, I can deal. I mean, being from San Diego, I'm pretty much used to it being hot year round. But it's different out here. It's like a different kind of hot.
They got that humidity.
Yeah. And it starts like right away. It's like 8 a.m. and you're already like sweating. So
there are worse things, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, so like in Montana, it was like the opposite. It was so cold. Like the air is so dry out there. Like literally, I would step outside for like a minute and my hands would just start cracking. Like no joke. It was crazy. Like you could see a clear line like on my wrist because, I'd be wearing like a long sleeve. And it was like wherever my sleeve was fine. And then like right there, it was just a straight line of just like cracked, dry skin.
Oh, man.
And it only took like a minute for that to happen. So, yeah.
I've never been to Montana, but like it's ridiculously cold there in the winter, is it not? Like,
dude, it's like on a different level. Like
it's not like going to Big Bear.
It's not like what?
It's not like going to Big Bear to like snowboard or something.
No. I've never been to Big Bear. The only place I've ever been snowboarding is in Montana.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's different. Like it hurts. Like it's like you don't just like shiver. You like whimper. Like it hurts your bones how cold it is. It's insane.
Oh man. All right. So do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I have 2 older brothers, so I'm the youngest. So one of my brothers is 4 years older than me, and then my oldest brother's 10 years older than me. So
Quite an age gap.
yeah, it's crazy. So like, yeah, my oldest brother, he moved away by the time I was like 12, I think. So, for the last, oh God, I'm horrible at math. What's that, like 16 years?
Mm-hmm.
I like only would see him once or twice a year, maybe, for like holidays and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird. Like we're definitely still like we're buddies, and like I think he's like a really cool dude, and I really, like him and love him. Obviously, he's my brother, but like, That's weird. I just have so many friends who I've spent so much more time with
Yeah.
than my oldest brother. It's kind of a trip.
What about your other brother? You guys are closer in age, right? So did you spend more time with him growing up?
Yeah, so obviously, like, we both lived at my parents' house until, he moved out, and he stayed in San Diego for a long time. He actually would be in San Diego right now, except for, again, all of the craziness that's happening right now. So he was actually playing drums for a band on like a cruise ship,
Oh,
and yeah, so he had done one cruise. It was like a 6 month thing, and playing for this band, and then he came back home for a couple months, and the cruise ships leave out of Florida,
mhm.
and so he came out. I think he was in like Tampa or something like that, and they were doing all their rehearsals because they have to practice for like a solid month before they go on this cruise because they've got an insane number of songs that they're playing, like every night. So he was out in Tampa rehearsing and practicing, and then all this coronavirus stuff started happening, and they didn't want any cruise ships to leave, so they sent him home. And because Florida has such a high number of cases, basically, he has a kid in San Diego, and his kid's mom was basically saying, like, I don't feel super comfortable with you coming from Florida to here because you don't know if you might have it, and I don't want you to get our son sick. So he decided to go out to Montana where my parents are and just basically stay out there until all this shit blows over.
Damn.
So
That's
yeah,
gotta be rough, man, not being able to go home.
yeah,
I got lucky, man. I was renting an apartment. Like I live in San Carlos, like
oh, okay.
kind of by Grossmont College, like in that area. And
Hmm.
I had an apartment in the area, and I moved back into my mom's like the first week of February without
Okay,
like any of this was gonna happen. And then like
yeah,
later I got laid off from my job. So like I'm the universe was working in my favor,
oh yeah,
because that would have been rough, man. I don't need an eviction
yeah,
record.
yeah, that would suck.
What so what are you doing for work right now? Are you working?
Not really anything at the moment. So I I have an online coaching business,
Hmm.
and like fitness, and then all this shit started happening, and like gyms are closing down and stuff. So like the clients that I had were like, hey, could I basically put a pause on things because I'm not working, and I don't even know if I can pay my rent, let alone pay you for coaching. So I mean, I can't really say no. It's not like I can like force them to to be coached by me. So yeah, like that's pretty much on hold right now. And I don't know, man. I mean, I know that there are coaches out there, and they're probably still getting clients, and they're doing like at home workouts and stuff. But I think like for me, it's more of a mental block than anything. Just trying to like, I mean, it's hard trying to get sales as it is.
Hmm.
It's hard to like slide in somebody's DMs and be like, hey, do you want to pay me so that I can coach you? And then you add all this coronavirus shit on top of that, and it makes it 10 times harder to like make that step. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say like it's not possible for me to keep growing my business right now, but for somebody who already like struggles to pull the trigger on like trying to get a new client, this definitely isn't helping.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
pretty much a stay-at-home dad right now.
How's
So
that life? How old is your kid?
She just turned 1 like a month ago, which is already crazy to me that it's been like a month since she turned 1. I mean, it's cool. It's fucking hard, like super hard. I mean, I'm just lucky to like have help, you know?
Yeah.
But still, dude, it's like every stage has its own challenge, you know, with like a kid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like when they're first born, when they're newborns, especially with your first kid, it's just like such an adjustment where it's, you know, you go from like people who don't have kids, who have never had kids, don't understand what, like how precious your time is. Like I took time for granted so much before having a kid, because it's like if I wanted to just take a day to just like do whatever, just sleep all day, or I want to just like go chill at the beach, or like on the opposite end of the spectrum, if I want to like grind all day, and like, you know, for a while I was working 2 jobs, literally like 16-hour days. Like I would start one job at like 6 a.m. and, you know, work and then go to my other job. And I'd have just enough time between when my first shift ended and my second shift started to drive from one job to the other. Like there was literally like 30 minutes to maybe an hour, depending on the day, you know, to like go from one job to the next. So it's like I clock out, I drive straight to my next job, I change into the work outfit for that job, I work, I get off at like 11:30, I go home and I sleep, and like that's my whole day. And it's like now it's like it doesn't even matter if I want to grind like that, like I can't. So
Yeah.
And you know, so it's like, so anyway, that was a tangent. But so like the newborn phase, you're just like, holy shit, I have no time to myself. It's all like your entire day is taking care of this little bean that can't eat or do anything for itself. And you know, so that's like its own thing. And then as they get older, they become like, they don't need as much help. They can do more things on their own, but then they need more supervision. So now it's like, I'm not so much, I don't have to be with her all the time to like make sure, dude, like when they're newborns, if they sleep the wrong way, they die. So like you have to make sure like that they're swaddled correctly, and like you can't take your eyes off them, because like if they roll over onto their stomach, like they could die just from sleeping on their stomach, you know? And then they get older and it's like you don't have to worry about that stuff. But if they're quiet, if they're too quiet, you know they're getting into something. So it's like you want peace and quiet, but if it's too quiet, then you're like, all right, what are you getting into? Yeah. So it's just each phase has its own challenges, but then along with that, each phase has its own like things that are really cool that you really enjoy. Mm-hmm. So yeah, man, I mean, it's as awesome as it is difficult, I would say. Like
that's a cool balance though. It's like it's a challenge, but it's like the most rewarding thing you could possibly do.
Yeah, and it's crazy just like watching a person like develop and grow, you know? Like watching her learn new skills. Like it was funny. So she's not really saying words yet. She's kind of saying like no, because she hears that a lot. But when she learned like what the word no means, and that there's a head that corresponds with it, like we tell her no and we shake our head. So then when we would tell her no, she would like shake her head. So she she'd like go to do something and we'd be like, Sophia, no, don't do that. And she would just like shake her head. And it's just funny like watching them connect the dots. And it was super funny. So we're living with my daughter's grandparents. It's the easiest way to describe that living situation. And they were watching something on Netflix. It was some sort of like Game of Thrones type show, you know, like medieval stuff. And in the show on TV, they're like dragging some guy out of some castle or whatever, and they're gonna like torture him or something. And the guy on TV is screaming like, no, 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 please, no. And I'm holding my daughter and she just goes, she just like shakes her head. It was like, so it's like when stuff like that happens, it's like, dude, I couldn't think of anything funnier to do in that moment. Like my kid just did the funniest thing that you could do, you know? So
great.
Stuff like that's pretty awesome.
All right, so yeah. Let's back it up a little bit. So like growing up in San Diego, what was your childhood like for the most part? Like, was it a solid childhood? Did you have like a good relationship with your family?
Yeah, man. My childhood was a little bit weird. I feel like it was different than a lot of people's like experience. So like as far as my home life was like pretty dope. You know, like my parents are still together. They've been married since they were 17. So they grew up in a very small town in Texas. I think now there's like 6,000 people there. I think when they were teenagers, it was closer to like 3,000 people. So it's like crazy small. And so, you know, my dad's dad was a Church of Christ preacher. And if you're not familiar with like, you know, there's different like denominations of like types of Christians or whatever. Basically, to sum up like how my dad felt about religion was only Church of Christ people are going to heaven, but not all of them. So it was like very exclusive. So my dad, you know, I think my parents got married because like they were like young horny teenagers, and the only way that they could do what young horny teenagers want to do and not be like shunned by their family was to get married. So, you know, that's what they did, and you know, they made it work, and they've been together ever since, which is, you know, kind of cool. I feel like there's like very few people that can say that. Yeah. So my home life was cool. Definitely didn't have a lot of issues there. But I grew up in like pretty rough neighborhoods. So like I think when most people think of San Diego, especially people who haven't been there, they think of like La Jolla. Like that's San Diego. That's not the San Diego I grew up in. So it was weird, man. Like I grew up in like Southeast San Diego in Skyline, and you know, we were like the only white family for miles, you know, and not that like that's the important thing, but you know, it was the hood, like it was ghetto.
Yeah, I mean, anyone that's listening to this is from San Diego. They're gonna hear you say that you grew up in Skyline, and they're gonna be like, "Oh man."
Yeah, dude. And anybody who's like really familiar with the area, if you mention like the Meadowbrook apartments, they know that like that place is sketch. I didn't live in the Meadowbrook apartments, but I lived like right down the street. And so, you know, it was like people would come over and they could tell, it's like you can tell just by the way like the streets and like the sidewalks look that you're like in a rough area. You know, it's like the infrastructure is not the same as nicer areas. And so people would be coming over to my house, you know, we'd be like giving people rides to our house. And we start, like, the closer we get to my house, like, the more uncomfortable people are starting to get with where they are. And, yeah, so it was weird. But, you know, so the high school that I would have gone to, like, my neighborhood high school, was Morse High School. Mm-hmm. And, you know, my mom didn't want me to go there because my middle brother, the one who's 4 years older than me, he went to, like, the rough schools that were close by. So he went to a school called Gompers, which I don't know, you know, how familiar even like San Diegans are with that, but Gompers, at least when he went there, so I think it was like K through 12. So that had a lot of problems with it, because you'd have, you know, like 16-year-olds and they've got like 11-year-olds to like bully and jack, you know? So, and on top of that, my brother was like a tiny, scrawny white child, you know. I don't even know if he weighed, I think he weighed like 90 pounds or something when he was going there, like super small. So, I mean, he got punked all the time. He got bullied all the time. And my mom didn't want me to have to like go through that. Mm-hmm. And I think my mom honestly was a little bit worried I would have like taken things to a different level than my brother, and I would have ended up like getting shot or something. So she put me on a waiting list to get into Lewis Middle School. And because that was like, you know, a much nicer school, and I ended up getting in after being on a waiting list for like 2 years or something like that. And so I ended up going to Patrick Henry. So, man, it was super weird because I'm like growing up in like these hood ass neighborhoods. Like when I first moved back to San Diego when I was 8, I lived in Logan Heights, which is like probably worse than Skyline. And then I like sort of upgraded, but sort of made like a lateral move to Skyline. And then I'm going to school at Patrick Henry, which is like right next to a golf course.
Yeah.
And like, and the funniest part about it is at Patrick Henry, you know, like there's all the kids that live near that school, like that's their neighborhood school, and they're like repping their little neighborhoods, you know, like their little white suburban neighborhoods. And, you know, they're like repping, you know, San Carlos and Allied Gardens and all that stuff. And I'm not saying any of this to like disrespect those people or whatever and say that they're not like just as tough as other people, even though like, I don't know. Anyways, I won't go down that rabbit hole, but I'm just like looking at, I'm looking at the area that the high school is in, and then I'm looking at where I live, and like hearing how these like young white children are talking about their like neighborhood as if it's like, you know, Compton or whatever. And it was just like so funny and bizarre to me, because I'm like, dude, you guys, like, I wish I lived in these neighborhoods. Like, they're so nice. And you guys are creating drama that doesn't need to exist because you want to like be cool, I guess. I don't know. So it was weird. It created like this kind of weird identity, like I won't say crisis, but like a conflict where I didn't really identify with the kids I went to school with because their life just looked so much different than mine. Like the things that they had to worry about were so much different. Mm-hmm. But then I didn't fit in where I live because, you know, like I was white. So yeah. It was like, I felt like I hear people who are mixed race talk about how they feel growing up. And I'm like, I can kind of relate to that in a way because I felt like I was like too hood for like the rich. I mean, not rich. I considered them rich. Like the rich kids at my school, but I felt like I was too white for my neighborhood, you know? Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. It was weird. It was interesting. Like when I was in 3rd grade, all the kids in my neighborhood, they waited until we like went to church, and they all like broke into my house and like took a bunch of shit. But it was like elementary school kids, so they weren't doing it trying to, yeah, like elementary and middle school kids, so they weren't doing it as like they weren't like trying to like hit a lick. They were just like, oh, we know these people and we know that they have like cool shit in their house, and we just want to go like play on their game systems and shit, you know? It was like they knew that we had like a PlayStation and like a Sega Dreamcast or whatever. So they just like went in and just like played with my toys, and then my dad came home and they just like they left, you know? But yeah, it was bizarre. But anyway, all things considered, like not that bad.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, so I grew up in El Cajon until like 7th grade, and then I moved to San Carlos, and I went to Catholic school from 1st grade to 8th grade, and then I went to a private Catholic all-boys high school for a couple months my freshman year, and then I went to Patrick Henry, and I was like super. I was this innocent kid, you know, Catholic school, and I was very like sheltered going. And then I get to, you know, public high school, and there's like people like smoking weed and like making out in the hallways, and I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And then, you know, when I think I was like a junior in high school, and I live right by the San Carlos Rec Center. Like I could walk there in like 3 minutes and right down the street. And, you know, one night I was hanging out with my girlfriend at the time and a couple of friends, and we were in somebody else's car, and we just pulled into like one of the parking lots at the rec center to like figure out what we were going to do for the night. You know, it was like a Friday night. We were like 16, like, oh, what are we going to do, you know? So we just drove down to the park to like sit in the car and figure it out. And then this huge group of people on like the bleachers at the baseball field. And one of them came down to the car, and he was like, are you from Allied Gardens? And I was like, no. Like, what do you mean? You know, I live right down the street. And he was like, nah, get out the car. And I was like, it was me and 3 girls. So I'm like, for one, like I have no backup, and 2, like, I don't want to get beat up in front of my girlfriend and her friends, you know? And this dude like tries to reach in through the window and like pull me out of the car.
Yeah.
And like more people start coming down from the bleachers. And finally my friend that was driving like puts the car in drive and like lets it drive away, and then they start throwing rocks at the car. And I was like, what? Like, what is going on? Like, I live right down the street. Like, what is this, you know? And it was just a weird experience, you know? And like, come to find out later that like that ended up like being a group of friends that I hung out with after that for a long time, you know? Like, you know these people, like, and it's very said that like they like it was in no way like a gang in neighborhood, and yet there was that kind of activity, you know?
Yeah, it's weird, and it's funny because it kind of came full circle. So after high school, which for me was only 2 years, I was on the accelerated track called dropping out, but very accelerated. So after high school, I ended up moving in with some people who like grew up in San Carlos, and you know, ended up being like really good friends with them. And you know, not to say that like any of that stuff is like justified, because I still think it's like silly to like have beef with somebody because they live in like a different part of like a bigger city. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, it makes sense to me. But hanging out with those guys, like forming a bond with those people, and they're like so passionate about like their little hometown or whatever. You start to like kind of, I don't know, it starts to make sense in a weird way, you know, because it's like you're not like fighting over the streets that you grew up on. It's just like you're supporting the people that you grew up with, you know.
Yeah.
And like I ended up getting in this like pretty gnarly rumble at the San Carlos Rec Center, like with those guys, you know. And so I'm like, in my head, I'm like, okay, so here I am. Like, I didn't grow up anywhere near this area. I always thought this like beef was silly, and here I am like fighting people, you know. But it's just because it's like we were there hanging out on the bleachers, and then all of a sudden like there's a huge group of people that like want to fight us for whatever reason. I have no clue why, but it's like, all right, well, what am I going to do now? Like, am I just going to leave and let all my friends, you know, like get beat up or whatever? And it's like, well, obviously, no, I'm not going to do that. So the other option is to stay here and fight. And it's just like, man, like I'm the last person who would be like mix of that like feud or whatever you want to call it. Yet here I am, you know. It's super weird, man. Like that kind of like that mob mentality or whatever. It's like you can look at it from like a zoomed out perspective and be like, that's silly. But then you're like in a situation and you're doing stuff that you think is silly. Like even in the moment you're like, this is dumb and I wish I weren't doing this, but I am. So yeah, it's weird. And it's funny too, because I remember one of the kids that was like, you know, on the other team was a kid that I had partied with before. Like I thought he was a cool dude, you know, and you know, it's like happening at night, so you don't even really know who's who half the time. But I just remember like amidst all the chaos that was going on, like you know, there's just all these bodies flying around hitting each other, and then kind of like a space opened up and it was just like me and him in this space. And I like looked at him and I was like, oh, I know you. Like, well, I'm friends with you. I've partied with you before. I don't want to hit you. And he kind of had a look on his face that was like kind of, he was thinking the same thing. And then I guess he just was like, well, you know, I've picked my side and you've picked the opposite side, so I'm going to try to hit you now. And I just remember he like took a big wild swing and I just blocked it with my forearm. And then I just like, I didn't swing back at him. I just like blocked it and looked at him. And then we both were like, all right, fuck it. And we just like moved on to other people, you know? So it was like, it was just such a weird thing, man. It's such a weird, like, it's one of the weirdest experiences I've ever had to go from like, we're just hanging out, having fun, you know, just shooting the shit, to now we're in this like fucking 30-person brawl, you know, and I'm having to make the decision of like, do I want to punch this kid that I don't actually have any problems with, that like literally a week ago I was like drinking with him in somebody's kitchen somewhere, and now it's like, do I punch you? Do I not punch you? Like, I know that on like an individual basis we're friends, but you know, you're on the red team and I'm on the blue team, or vice versa. So now I have to decide if I want to punch you in the face or not. And yeah, it was just super weird. And you know, I don't want to like say too many details because I don't know. I don't want to like whatever. But I remember, it was dark, and I didn't really know, like I said, who was who. Everybody's pretty much dressed the same. Like this was like during the time where literally everybody just wore like a gray or black Pro Club t-shirt with a black SD hat. Like that was like the San Diego uniform. So everybody's dressed the same. It's dark. And so I was like, okay, the biggest thing is I don't want to accidentally like punch one of my friends that I'm close with.
Right.
So I have to pick somebody who is like visually unique enough that I know for sure I'm not hitting the wrong person. So I saw a kid who was like really tall, and he had kind of like the Bieber, like the old school Bieber haircut. It was like bright blonde hair. So I just see like this head of blonde hair floating in the darkness. And I go, I know that I don't know that guy, so I'm just going to start punching him. And I started, fighting him or whatever. Come to find out, like years later, I get a job at this like sign company or whatever. And I'm working with this dude, and somehow we start talking about this whole like San Carlos Allied Gardens thing or whatever. And he's like, oh yeah, my brother used to run around with these kids in Allied Gardens, and they used to get in these fights and yada, yada, yada. So we're like sharing stories and stuff. Well, come to find out, the kid that I decided to fight was his brother. And so it's just like such a small world,
Yeah.
But yeah, it was weird.
That house you lived at, man, there was there's some stories in that house, dude.
Wild.
Yeah, for sure. Like half pipe, that half pipe in the backyard, man, that was
dude.
like
that was like it was awesome, man. Like that was when I was a little kid. If you would have asked me like what I wanted my life to look like when I was 19, if you asked me when I was 9 what I wanted my life to look like in 10 years, that house is exactly what I would have said. like I would have told you that I wanted a skate ramp in my backyard and a pool table, and I just wanted all my friends to be over all the time. And that's pretty much what it was. Yeah. And it was dope for like a month, and then it wasn't dope anymore. It was, dude, that place was so filthy and disgusting that like it was like beyond hope of even trying to clean it and like turn things around. It was just so nasty. And like, I mean, it's what you would expect from like 4 or 5 19-year-old dudes.
Yeah.
Living together. Like it was so gross. Just like it smelled. And it was funny because there would be weekends, where we wanted it to be like the party house that everybody wanted to go to all the time. And we'd have weekends where we're like, all right, man, let's invite people over, yada, yada, yada. And then like nobody wants to come over. And we're like, man, how come nobody wants to come over? And looking back, I'm like, because it was fucking disgusting. That's why. Like,
I remember there was like a couple parties there. Wasn't there one where like you had to have a wristband to get in?
That might have been before my time there. That was probably in the Johnny Lupo days.
Yeah. Man, that was there. Okay, so I remember like back then, like when I met you, you like hadn't really done any drugs at all. Like you like smoked weed.
Yeah.
And then did you ever like get into anything else?
Yeah, dude. So, okay. So yeah, before I moved in there, I had like barely drank before. You know, I had like smoked weed or whatever, and I move in there, and I smoked a lot more weed there than I ever did before that, but even still not that much.
Mm-hmm.
It's just never really been my jam. And like, it makes me super, super self-conscious to where I don't want to say anything because I feel like it's going to be dumb, and then, you know, I'm going to be the joke because of what I said or whatever. So never been like that into it. But then there was one day, it was me and my friend were like sitting on the couch just watching TV, I think. And out of nowhere, like, we hadn't said anything to each other in like half an hour at least. And he goes, "Hey, Joel." Oh shit, I just dropped something. He was like, "Joel, do you like bright colors?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And he goes, "Oh, then you're going to love 2CI." And I was like, "What the fuck is 2CI?" And he was like, "It's a drug." And I was like, "Okay." And he was like, "It just makes you see like really bright color, and like, you know, you're going to love it." I was like, "All right, cool." So for my 19th day, him and like 10 other people came over. I think there was like 12 of us. And we decided that we were all just going to do 2CI together, which, for anybody who hasn't heard of it, which probably like most people haven't, it's basically like it's like an acid knockoff kind of thing, I guess is the best way to describe it. So it's like a synthetic, you know, hallucinogen type drug. And so we were like, yeah, fuck it. We're all going to do 2CI. We're all going to trip out together, and, you know, like, it's going to be a good time. So it comes in like these little capsules, and we broke them open and put them in like a little like paper towel or whatever, and just drop them that way.
Parachute them.
Yeah. So we did that. And then I don't want to say who said this, but I feel like people who know this person are going to know who it was. But he was like, he started to like drop his pants, and everybody was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, we're not putting this in our butt." We were like, "No." So we all parachute it, and like right after I parachute it, I think it was the same guy. He's like, "Oh, this is probably a good time to let you know that you did a double hit, not a single hit, and none of us have ever done a double hit before, so we're all doing a double hit, so it's going to be like all of our first time." And I like laughed. I was like, "Yeah, okay." And he was like, "No, I'm dead serious." I was like, "We're doing a double hit of something I've never done before, and I've like never done any hallucinogen at all." And he was like, "Well, we knew it was your first time, but some of us have done it before, but none of us have ever done a double hit. So we figured to make it like everyone's first time, we're all going to do a double hit." So I started to like freak out a little bit, and all my friends were just like, "Dude, just go with it. It's fun. Like, it's not, you know, it's not that intense, whatever." And it turns out that a double hit is much more intense than a single hit. And like, that was, I wouldn't say that I had a bad trip, but I wouldn't say that it was fun. Like, parts of it were like kind of fun, but it was just such like a, you know, for somebody who's never done any type of hallucinogen to do that, it was just too big of a step, you know. And it lasted way too long, like way too long. Like, I tripped for like close to 12 hours, I would say. And when you're on 2CI, time goes by so slow, like inconceivably slow. Like, you know how sometimes when you're smoking weed and you're like talking to people, you're like, you know, talking about some random topic, and then you check your your phone or whatever, and you're like, holy shit, it's only been 15 minutes and it feels like it's been an hour.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that feeling? It was like, I felt like thousands of years had gone by and it had been 2 minutes.
Oh man.
I checked my phone every 2 minutes for probably like close to an hour. And each time I was like devastated by how slow time was going. So after doing that too much, I started to like have a bad time or whatever. So that made me not want to do like anything ever. I was like, I'm just going to drink and never touch any other drugs ever again. But then it was New Year's Eve, which was like 2 months later. So it shows you how strong my resolve is to never do anything. And you know, the same group of friends convinced me that I should try ecstasy for New Year's Eve. And so it took a little bit of coercing because I was so like scarred by the 2CI incident. But you know, they like assured me like, dude, it's nothing like 2CI. It's way different. You're not going to trip out. Like, it's going to be a really pleasurable experience. So finally, I'm okay. I'll do ecstasy. So we get these pills. They looked sketchy, like so sketchy. And like, you know how a lot of them have like little pictures on them, and they're like, none of that. They were like they weren't like crisp or clean looking at all. Like they just looked like bad news. But we did it. And that night was the most, like, if we're talking about just like our 5, you know, physical senses, that night was the most pleasurable night ever of my life. Like, in terms of what I can touch, smell, taste, hear, see, all that stuff, it was like the most pleasure I'd ever felt. And it was crazy too, like on like the social side of things too, you know, like anybody who's ever done ecstasy knows that like everyone's your best friend when you're on ecstasy. Like you're just like, oh my God, all these people are so amazing. And you know, like, you just think that everybody is like the coolest person you've ever met. And that for me was like the biggest thing, because I've always struggled with, you know, like social anxiety and just like low self-esteem, I guess. Like I always just like, I have a hard time like talking to new people and like making new friends and like talking to girls and stuff like that. I always had this feeling that like people just didn't like me. Even if it was somebody I've been friends with for years, I always had this feeling in the back of my mind, like, what if deep down they actually fucking hate me, but they're just keeping me around for entertainment purposes, or they feel bad being honest with me that they don't like me, or whatever, you know. Like there was definitely times when I was living in that house with all those guys where I felt like, I feel like they don't actually like me, but they're keeping me around, one, because I'm entertaining, because I get drunk and do crazy shit and it's fun to like see what I'll do, and 2, because it's another person to like have their back if they need it. And I'm not saying that that's how I actually, like what I actually think was going on, but that's how I felt inside. I always felt like these people don't actually like me, you know, like I'm completely dispensable to them, but for now, like I'm fun and entertaining to have around, so they'll keep me around. And the first time I did ecstasy was like the first time in my life that I did not have that feeling or that thought at all. And I was like, oh shit. Like I actually I was like, this is how people get addicted to things, because like it's not like the physical sensations that you're feeling, it's what it does to you mentally, of feeling like, of not even having that thought of whether people genuinely like you or not. You feel and you believe that everybody there genuinely likes you. Even though when you're on ecstasy, people probably don't feel that way about you, but in your mind, they totally do. So I just remember people kept asking me like, "Oh, how are you feeling? How are you feeling?" Like checking in on me, making sure that I'm having like the intended experience, you know. And I couldn't even convey to them like how amazing I felt, you know. And I remember one of my buddies, he was like, just be careful that you don't get like too used to this feeling and want to do it all the time, because you're going to end up like that guy in the corner. And there's a dude just like sitting over by a speaker, just like fucking totally tuned out, you know? And they're like, if you do this too much, you're going to be that guy. So this is like an occasional thing. Don't like try to do this all the time. You're going to like fuck your brain up. And I was like, damn. But like part of me was like, worth it. I don't even care. Like that sounds awesome. I don't even care if that's what happens, you know? Yeah, so that was weird. And then I remember I told my roommates at the time the next day I wanted to do that tonight. And one of my roommates was like, why? I was like, cause it was fucking awesome. Like I want to feel that way 24/7. I never want to not feel that way. And he was like, dude, you waited 19 years to try it, and now you want to do it back to back 2 nights in a row? Like, wait a little bit. And I was like, okay, fine. And he was like, and by the way, that feeling, you're never going to feel that way again. So if you think that you're just going to keep like doing that, you know, like you're just going to keep taking ecstasy and you're going to keep going back to that feeling every time, he was like, that's how crackheads become crackheads. Like, because they're chasing that feeling that they had that first time. Like, that's literally what chasing that first high means. Like, you're literally never going to feel as good as you felt the first time you did ecstasy. And then that was like even more of a crushing blow, because I was like almost okay with the thought of being addicted to it if it meant that I could feel that way all the time. But then I was like, damn, you mean to tell me that I could get addicted to this thing and not feel that way all the time? Like, that sounds horrible. So like, so that was like kind of a wake-up call, I guess, to where I was like, fuck, man, maybe I have like some other shit that I need to work on. I didn't, but I knew that I probably should. But yeah, so after that, I wouldn't say that I ever like struggled with anything. Like I was never addicted to anything, but I did do ecstasy like a few more times trying to like get that feeling back. Mm-hmm. And it never like, I never got close, like not even in the ballpark, you know? Mm-hmm. So after I had done it like a few times and realized like that feeling's never going to happen again, then I was like, all right, at this point, I'm just like causing brain damage for no reason. Like I'm not really getting a payoff out of this. So then at that point I was just like, all right, I guess I should just be smart and stop doing drugs, because they're not like doing anything for me really. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I've never done anything like harder than that. I've never done like meth or heroin. So I got that going for me. And I've never really done any other like hallucinogens, aside from like a very, very small dose of mushrooms where like I almost didn't feel anything at all. But I've just, ever since the 2CI thing, I've been so like scared of like psychedelic things that I feel like I would have a bad trip just because of how like scared of it I am. So I've just never really done it. And I know that like, you know, there are people who will swear that mushrooms will like change your life and cure depression and do all that stuff. But I just haven't messed with it. And at this point in my life, it's like I'm cool with being sober. Like it's, you know, even like drinking, like when I drink now, I used to drink until I started to feel tipsy, and then I would start counting like how many drinks I had, you know, because I was drinking for the feeling of like being drunk. And now it's like I know I can only have like 2, maybe 3 drinks before I'm like, okay, I'm done. Like if I start to feel tipsy, I'm pretty much like done for the night, because I just don't enjoy being in that state anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, I still drink beer. I still like really like beer, but as far as like vices, substances are not my vice. So
What is your vice?
I had a feeling that you would ask that once I told you that that's not my vice. um, I don't know, man. I guess just giving into the things that like, because I still struggle with depression like all the time. And I guess, you know, depression makes you want to like not do any of the things that you know you should be doing, you know? And I guess my vice is just like giving into that, you know, and just being like, yeah, I know I should try to wake myself up at a decent time and go through my morning routine and meditate and journal and do all these things that I know are good for me, but I'm just not going to, you know?
Yeah.
Or like, I know I should go to bed earlier so that waking up earlier is not so hard and I won't be so tired and all that stuff. But like, I'm just gonna not go to bed until I'm like falling asleep in my chair, and then I'm gonna go to bed, and then tomorrow's gonna be shitty, but I'm just not gonna do anything about that right now. I'm just gonna like stay up doing nothing. So I don't know. It's kind of a fucking lame ass vice to have,
But that's like, I don't know. I disagree. I think that's like, because I struggle with that too sometimes. Like, even like right now, like here's the way I see it is like I have like 2 projects that I'm working on. Like one, like I'm in a mentorship program. And the other one is like I signed up to get my real estate license in California.
yeah,
And I signed up for like the course to get my real estate license, and then like 2 weeks later signed up for this mentorship program. And
yeah,
I didn't even crack open a book for the real estate course for weeks after I got them in the mail, you know, because for one, like I was scared because like I hadn't studied for anything for like 10 years. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I don't even know how to study, you know?
yeah,
Scary. And then I started to do it. And then I just started like avoiding it again. And like I'll write it in my planner, and then I just don't do it. And then I'll like avoid my planner because I don't want to remind myself that I'm not doing what I said that I would do.
yeah,
What I should do, you know? And it's hard to like get past that initial like, because when you like, it's like if you go to the gym consistently for like 3 months and you're like in the rhythm and you're like seeing results, and then you don't go for 2 months, to get back into the gym, like that's going to cause some serious anxiety, you know?
yeah,
And I feel like I'm on like a micro scale of that right now.
yeah,
And it's it's a weird situation when like you know what you could do, and yet it's hard to make yourself do something.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's like, like imposter syndrome is a huge thing. I think for anybody who's trying to, like get out of the just working for somebody else path, imposter syndrome is always a thing. Anybody who wants to like be a coach, or if you're trying to like be an artist or a musician, you're always going to have that imposter syndrome. And so it's like looking at what I'm trying to make a living doing. I'm trying to help people fix the same problems that I still have, so that makes you feel like a fraud when you're trying to help people establish like a morning routine and establish healthier habits and all that stuff. Yet you look at your own life and you're like, I haven't done my morning routine in over a month,
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I think that's another thing that's like holding me back from trying to go out and get clients, because I know in the back of my mind that like, I don't want to preach anything that I'm not practicing.
Right.
So if I want to go get another client, I feel like I'm going to have to get back in my own routine, and I'm just like not ready to do that yet. So it's like, well, I guess it's going to be a while before I start trying to get more clients, because I'm not ready to like, get back on my own grind the way that I should be. So yeah, man. But all of this like coronavirus stuff that's going on, like it's been a little bit of a blessing in disguise, I guess, because I feel like, probably a lot of people can relate to, like, we fill our time with all this stuff, with all of these different activities, because we're trying to like stay out of our mind. Like when I got a second job, I was talking about earlier how I was working 16-hour days. Like part of that was I had like credit cards and stuff I wanted to pay off, but probably a bigger part of that was I was so like fucked up inside that if I had downtime, it would just lead me into like a dark thought pattern. And I literally was like, I don't want to have too much free time, because I'll spend all my free time just thinking negative thoughts and getting more and more depressed. So the more I work, the less opportunity there is for that to happen. So I'm going to work as much as possible, and I'll deal with everything that's going on inside later. But like for now, I just need to like not have any idle time, because it's just anytime I sit and I'm alone with my thoughts, it starts to get really bad. So I just need to not have any time to be alone with my thoughts, and I'll be good, So probably not the healthiest coping mechanism, but I did get my credit cards paid off. So, what's that?
The small wins.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so now it's like, I mean, I couldn't do that even if I wanted to. So I'm just like, I have nothing but time now to kind of sit and like be alone with my thoughts and think about like what I really want to do, what I'm really passionate about. And I think like deep down, I am passionate about wanting to like coach people and help people, like the people that I have coached and the results that I have seen with those people, like that feels awesome. Like when they send me a text saying like, I've been doing my morning routine every day and I feel great, and like I haven't struggled with this problem, for like a week and a half now. Like I haven't had this negative thought for over a week that I used to have every day. Like that shit feels awesome. Mm-hmm. So I think that a lot of what's going on right now is just like imposter syndrome and self-doubt. But at the same time, there's other stuff that I'm passionate about that I've been completely neglecting that I'm starting to pay more attention to because of everything that's going on. So I think that like in that way it's kind of a blessing because, you know, like I used to be so into art when I was younger. Like, you know, as a kid, I would draw all day, like all day. I would draw for hours until my back was killing me. I'd get up and like stretch and walk around the house, go eat some Pop-Tarts or something, and then come right back and go right back to drawing. And like, there have been times where I've drawn all night until it's like time to like get up and get ready for school. But then once I got into high school and I became so concerned with like trying to be cool and have friends and stuff, I stopped doing that because, I don't know. I wanted to like try to be cool more than I wanted to do what I actually enjoy doing. And now that I have all this time, I'm like getting back into drawing and getting back into art. And it's like one of the few things now that's like helping me keep my sanity, because I'm, you know, being stuck in a house all day, every day can be pretty maddening. Like it's not what humans were meant to do. And getting back into drawing is helping me kind of like stay sane in that situation. So, yeah, like once things go back to normal, whatever that means, I feel like I'll have this thing back that I lost. And so, I mean, that's a cool thing, you know? And it's like one of those things too, where I feel like sometimes if you take some time off from something, you come back to it better than when you left it. And I feel like that's happening with my art. Like, not to say that I think I'm awesome or whatever, but just the drawings that I've been doing in the last week, I feel like are better than like anything I was doing before. So, yeah, man, just trying to get those positives.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I never really like could draw. Like, I mean, I can draw. I'm just terrible at it, you know?
Yeah.
But in high school, I took ceramics. And
Oh, yeah?
Turns out I was really good at it. And like, I took it for 2 years. And by like the beginning of the second year that I was taking it, like people were paying me to do their assignments for them. Like to
Yeah.
like, you have to make 10 vases or like 5 bowls or whatever. You know? And people were paying me for that. And I was like, for sure, like I'm about to make a whole bunch of stuff anyways. So I might as well get it, you know? And that was like, that's like the extent of my artistic talent in like the physical art realm.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
My older brother's like super good at drawing, and when I was a kid, he would draw pictures and I would color them in.
Oh, that's awesome.
I was good at coloring.
Yeah. Dude, and I'm not good at coloring, which is like a funny thing to not be good at, because there are like 4-year-olds who are good at that. But this is one problem that I've always had with art that I still do, where I'll draw something to the point that like it's easily recognizable for what it should look like, and then I'll stop. So as soon as I can show somebody what I'm drawing and they go, oh, that's this thing, I'm like, cool, done. Don't need to add any more details. Like, I don't need to shade it. I just like, if you can look at it and say like, oh, that's this thing or this person, I'm done. And I'm really trying to like break myself of that habit and like actually finish and you know, like polish what I'm working on until it's like actually done. So I think that's why I never got good at like coloring or even really like shading that much, because it was like I would do like the line drawing, and if you could tell, like if I'm trying to draw rock and you're like, oh, that looks like the rock, I'm like, cool, done, next. Like, let's do the next drawing. So I I have like so much respect for professional artists who like do a piece and finish it, like actually finish it, and then do another piece and finish that one. Because I don't think I've ever, no, that's not true. I finished one drawing for sure because it was for like a homework assignment.
Mhm.
But outside of that, like, you look at all my drawings, even the ones where I do like the shading, it's like I'll shade like half of it and then the other half is just line work, because I'm like, I shaded it enough for you to know where the light's coming from, but I don't need to like add all these other details. So yeah, I'm working on that, trying to like actually finish stuff. It's hard
Okay,
though.
man. I'm
Yeah,
trying to
thanks.
see when you finish it.
You what?
I want to see one when you finish it.
I will. You can be my accountability partner.
Okay.
I'll show you my finished pieces.
I'm with it.
Yeah, I've got. So like, what I'll do in my sketchbooks is I'll pick a page and be like, all right, this page is going to be all like within a theme. Like this page is going to be all birds, or this page is going to be all portraits or whatever. So I've got a page right now. I've got 3 different portraits that are started but not finished. So I'll work on finishing those, and then you can see those.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
So there's something else I wanted to talk about. Like, what got you into coaching?
I don't know. Just being like active, working out has always been, like something that I've enjoyed. Like fighting, like martial arts, working out, lifting weights, and then art. Those 3 things, like I have always loved those things. Like I literally, when I was 10 years old, I would like watch Ninja Turtles in the living room, and I'd do like my little karate moves, and then I'd grab like a little 10-pound dumbbell and do some curls, and then like I would draw like the Ninja Turtles. Like that that pretty much sums up like
Dude,
all of my hobbies.
that's the trifecta.
Yeah, triple threat. So so yeah, I've always been passionate about it, and like, to be totally honest, I just kind of looked at my passions and just kind of asked myself, like, how could I monetize one of these things that I'm passionate about so that I can get paid to do what I enjoy? So you look at those 3 things, it's like, okay, be a professional artist. I'm not there. Be like a professional fighter. Don't want to fucking do that. Or, do something professionally with fitness. So, I don't know if that's the best way to like choose a career, but I just figured like I want to do something that I actually care about and I enjoy doing. And out of like my 3 main things that I really care about, that just seemed like the one that kind of like was the most practical out of all my dream jobs. So yeah, I wanted to do something that I actually enjoy and care about for a living. So
Dude, I think that might be the best way to choose a career. If you're like line up your passions and you're like, okay, like I don't want to get beat up every day.
Right.
Like my drawing is like, like it's not quite there. I've been slacking on it, but I've been consistent with the gym and I really like it. And I'm trying to help people, like, and I can make money off it. Like, that's it. Like, that seems like if you could, I feel like if a lot of people would say that, like, that's the route that they would want to go, is to like
Right.
find something that they love to do and make money off of it.
Right. Yeah. And it's like one of those things where I think that doing something that you actually care about and are passionate about, and it's like I listen to the advice of all of the, like gurus or like well-respected people who are on social media. Like Gary Vee is like a huge influencer in that realm. And they always talk about like what would you be doing if you didn't have to worry about money? You know, like if you won the lottery and you became a billionaire overnight, what would you start doing as a result of not having to worry about making money? And so that again, that's kind of like what led me there, because it's like if somebody else were paying all of my bills, or I had, you know, an endless supply of money and I didn't have to like earn money and I could just do whatever the fuck I wanted, I would be training like every day. I would be drawing and making art all the time, and I'd be working out. Like that would be like all of my time outside of like hanging out with my daughter, you know? So yeah, it was just kind of like, here's your passions. Here's what you would want to do even if nobody was paying you. These are the things that you are paying to do. So try to figure out what to do between all of those things. So yeah, it just kind of seemed like the best way to get paid to do something that I enjoy.
That's cool, man. I'm trying to make that happen. I don't really know, like, I'm in the process of figuring that out right now.
Right. Yeah.
Like, this podcast is not big enough to like make any money off of, you know, and like,
Yeah.
but I really enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
And, like, it teaches me a lot about myself, and I love like talking to other people and like learning about them. So it's like a win-win, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm with you in the sense that like this like quarantine has given me the opportunity to like devote time to something that I would not normally otherwise do that, you know? So
Yeah.
like I was working I did the same thing, like where I worked like 2 full-time jobs. Like I would work 6 a.m. to 2:30 at Costco, and then I would have enough time to go home, change my clothes, and then go and bartend at a restaurant from 3:30 until like 11. And
Yeah,
then,
that's like exactly what I was doing, just different. Yeah.
and then I ended up quitting Costco at like the end of 2019, and then I took a management job at that restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, this is not like, I'm not happy. Like I thought that like the promotion would do it for me, but like it didn't do it for me. And so I was like trying to think of like what else I could do, like what other like industry I could like break into. And I was looking at like property management, and then the restaurant closed. And then I was like, well, I could probably get my real estate license. Like I have free time, you know, like, and I want to learn about it.
Yeah.
So it's cool to like have, like, sometimes I'm like, man, like I'm a little bit bored, you know, like that thought crosses my mind rarely, but like it's happened since I haven't been working, you know, but
Yeah.
um there's so many more positives than negatives in my life.
Yeah.
With the current situation that we're in. Like I know there's a lot of people that are devastated by all of this, but for me, it's like giving me the opportunity to pursue things that I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. It's like, so I started a like meme account on Instagram that was like, so when I first decided I wanted to like coach people online, I wanted to come up with like a martial arts program where I could teach people martial arts through like instructional videos, and like have them send me videos of them doing certain techniques, and like I could kind of help people, you know, like I wanted to be able to help people who either don't have access to a gym where they're at, or they're like too scared to like go into a gym, because that's fucking real intimidating. Like if you've never trained, you know, in like any type of martial arts or whatever, to take that step to like go into like a martial arts gym and start training there, dude, that's like, it can be super nerve-wracking, you know, like So I wanted to do that. And so that's like where I started with it. And then just kind of through things happening, I decided that I would kind of stick with, just kind of like fitness related stuff, at least for now. So I had this Instagram where I would make like martial arts related memes, like memes about jiu-jitsu and stuff. And I wanted to like build that up so that when I'm ready to launch this like online martial arts coaching thing, like I could give myself a shout out, Yeah. And then it turns out that it's like way harder to build, an Instagram following than you would think that it would be. And it's like I was making all like my own original content, like I wasn't one of those pages where I would just like steal other people's memes and just, share it on my own thing. So it's like I have to like be funny. Like I have to like think of funny things, and that shit's kind of hard, even for somebody as funny as me. It can be kind of hard. So like for the last few months, I've just been like not really into it anymore. And at first it was really fun, like I had a lot of fun making memes and like there were, it was surprising to me how many people who didn't know me started following me and like interacting with me a lot and like really liked what I was putting out. And so I was like, man, this is really cool. But then after a while, I'm like not feeling super inspired and running out of ideas pretty much. So I've been feeling for a while like, man, I should just quit this stupid meme page. It's not like doing what I had hoped that it would do anyway. And it's just kind of like sitting there, I'm not really doing much with it. And so then I kind of went back in my head to like, okay, then what things are you passionate about? And, art again is like, I was neglecting it for a long time. And now that I have all this time, I'm getting back into it. And I'm like, what if I just turned that meme page into something where I just like share art that I like, like art that inspires me, because I feel like everybody who gets into art gets into it because somebody else inspired them to do it,
Yeah.
Like there's probably nobody that just like has never seen somebody else's artwork or never enjoyed somebody else's artwork and is like, I'm going to put pictures on stuff, So, every artist is inspired by other artists. So I figured like, and this is kind of going back to like the Gary Vee mentality of like, don't worry about monetizing things. Don't worry about how can I benefit from this thing or what can I do to like serve myself. Just worry about serving other people. And then if you do that enough, and if you are able to provide value for enough people, you'll get the value back. So I was like, all right, well, if I can give exposure to artists who are trying to get their work out there, because I credit every artist that I share, I tag them, I link them so that people can go to their page and check their stuff out. So I thought like, that's a way that I can add value to artists, and to, people who enjoy art. Like if somebody enjoys collecting art, and I've shown them a new artist that they like, now they can go and put up another cool piece of artwork in their house or on their skin, whatever the case. So that's something that I'm like really excited about because one, it's not like a self-serving thing. Like I'm sharing this art because I really like it and I want other people to be exposed to it. And I want those artists to succeed. Like I want them all to do well. So that's something that like, it's like another possibility that I hadn't really explored before, where maybe it is possible to do something in the art world without being an artist necessarily. Like if I could, like podcasts are like all the rage these days. I feel like if you don't have a podcast, are you really a millennial? So I feel like if I could start a podcast kind of like how you're doing and just like sit across from artists who I really like and just talk to them, like if I could make money doing that, that would be like crazy. Like I can't even imagine that being a reality, but that is a reality for so many people.
Yeah.
So I just kind of had the thought of like, it's worth a shot, and I'm not enjoying this other thing that I'm doing. So at the very least, I'm spending more of my time doing things that I enjoy. So if it never turns into anything, if I never start a podcast, or if I start a podcast but it never blows up and I never make money, like I'm still going to spend more of my time doing things that I enjoy than I was before. So it's already a success.
I think you should definitely start a podcast.
Yeah.
it's literally so easy. Like,
Yeah.
buy some microphones on OfferUp and just record.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same thing as like getting past that first hurdle where it's like uncomfortable and like makes you anxious.
Mm-hmm.
But like I remember before I started this, I was like, I put it off. I like made my Instagram page and then I like didn't record a podcast for like 6 weeks, something like that, you know? And I was like, okay, like what am I doing, you know? And then I did one by myself, and then like Cody's like he's on like every other episode, you know? And he actually like went in with me on the microphones, the first set of microphones. And
nice.
It was cool to like to start doing it and now like see the momentum. Like I think it's a cool idea to like interview artists that like you respect and like get them the exposure that like they wouldn't otherwise have. And it's like win, because it's like fulfilling you and they're getting something out of it and the people listening are getting something out of it.
Yeah.
Like it's
you
know.
I think I'm going to, because I actually have like a couple of the people that I've like given shout outs to on that page are like personal friends of mine. So so like one of the people, she's a tattoo artist in San Diego. She's tattooed me like 3 different times. We're actually next door neighbors. That's how I met her. So you know, like we were in an apartment complex and our doors were like kind of, you know, I was on this part of the corner and she was here. So it's like we come outside and we're face to face. So it's like we're going to interact and talk. So we actually ended up becoming like pretty good friends. And, you know, she tattooed me and I've bought other I bought prints and stuff from her. So like, yeah, dude, if I could get exposure for her and help her grow her, you know, art and tattoo business just from talking to her, you know, on a public platform, like, dude, it's like, if it's that easy to provide value for somebody, then like, why the fuck would I not want to do that?
Right.
So, and honestly, like, what's that?
I said, it really is that easy.
Yeah. Yeah. And like another one of the people that I've promoted on there, his name's Kyler, and I met him in like the craft beer industry. Cause I was working at AleSmith in San Diego and he was working at McKellar. We're like right down the street from each other. So, you know, we met through doing that, and then come to find out he like does art or whatever. And, you know, like whenever somebody tells you like, oh yeah, I do art, you're like, oh, that's cute, you know, including me. Like, that's why I never really bring it up. Cause I know that when I tell people like, oh, I like to draw, they're going to be like, oh, so does my 4-year-old. So, but he's like, oh yeah, you know, I do art or whatever. And I think he had some sort of, exhibition or whatever you want to call it. And so I checked out his art and I was like, oh shit, like you really do art. Like you're fucking good, you know? And so like his piece that I shared, regardless, like if I didn't know him and I just saw that piece, I'd be like, dude, that is really fucking cool. Like I really like that piece of art. And it just so happens that like I know him too, you know? So it's that type of stuff. And I think the thing that's like drawing me to wanting to do this and explore this is because in like the online coaching realm, it's like we're all trying to use social media to promote our own services, you know? And there are a few other online coaches who, you know, like we follow each other's accounts and we try to help bring traffic to each other's pages. But there's a small part of me that feels like there's like a competition, even though I don't think any of us feel like, I don't think any of us feel like we're being competitive, but there's a part of me that feels like, well, every client that they get is a client that I'm not going to get, you know, like there's this feeling of scarcity, and I don't like that feeling of scarcity. Like I don't like feeling like somebody else's success is somehow taking away from mine. And I know intellectually that that's not even actually true, because, you know, those people, they're going to get clients who like resonate with them on a personal level. Mm-hmm. And I know that my personality is completely different from any of theirs. So in reality, I know that like people are going to choose who they want to work with based on how they feel about them on a personal level. They're going to want to work with somebody who they can relate to. And so I know that there's not actually a competition between me and these other people, but I still feel that like scarcity feeling. And when I'm sharing people's artwork and stuff, it's like the complete opposite feeling. Like when I post somebody's artwork on that page and it starts getting likes, I get excited for that person, not for my page. Like, I'm not like, oh yes, like my page is getting likes. I'm like, fuck yeah, their art is getting likes. Like I'm excited for their success. It's the complete polar opposite of how I feel with like the coaching thing. So it's one of those things where like, I'm not saying that I want to like give up on the coaching thing, but I feel like if there was a way for the art thing to be successful, like if they were both on the same level and I had to like choose which one to like prioritize over the other, I feel like I would choose the art thing, just because the feeling that I'm getting from it is so much better without any like money or anything like that coming in from it. I'm just having such a good time just being immersed in that world that it's really making me think like, damn, maybe there's something here that I should give some more time and thought and attention to and see if that's a route that I could actually go. So,
dude, I think that's awesome.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say like that's incredible that like you're excited for people that you're promoting. You know, I feel like that's a rare quality for somebody to have. Like, not like I'm going to use somebody else's artwork to get my page popularity. It's like, no, like I'm going to use the popularity of my page to get them exposure. You know? Yeah, dude. And that like what you just said is what's making me want to look into it more, because that's exactly, and I don't even think that that's saying a lot about me. I think it's just speaking more to like the realm that I'm putting myself in, you know, because in like the online coaching space or whatever, it's like I do feel like that kind of like stingy feeling of like,
you know, like I want you guys to have success, but like not more than me though, you know, and like in the art realm, it's like if you could see wild success, and I can just like have enough success to like pay my bills and stuff while helping you reach that wild success, I would honestly, genuinely be stoked for that. Like, and that's kind of like the difference for me, where I'm like, I feel like I should give some more thought to this and not just brush it off as being, you know, like a silly idea. Like maybe it's not that silly.
I don't think it's silly at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I might have to start me a podcast.
Bro, I have my original microphones. Like, I'll send them to you.
Yeah?
Yeah, bro. I got them right here behind me.
Dude.
Like, for
I'm
real.
not going to say no to free stuff.
There you go.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Down
for that.
Cool, man. Well, dude, this was a lot of fun. It was great catching up.
Yeah, man. Dude, and that's one of these other blessings in disguises is like when else would we have video called each other and like caught up like this?
Dude,
you know?
Who knows if it would have ever happened, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm glad it did. This is cool, man. I've like there's a lot of stuff like we've been friends for a long time, but I didn't really like know a lot about you. You know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, same. I listened to your first episode and I was like, holy shit, I just learned a lot of stuff about Nick. I'm like, it's crazy.
Yeah, man. Well, that's why I did it. Like, I want to like get people that maybe feel like they can't relate to anybody to like see that there are people that they can connect with, you know, and that there's like they're not the only one that's struggling, you know?
Right. Yeah, I think that's super important. Like knowing that there's somebody else who's like gone through similar things that you've gone through, and that they made it out all right. Therefore, you can make it out all right.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome what you're doing. Like, I want to listen to all of the episodes of your podcast.
It might take you a while, but there's some golden nuggets in there.
Yeah. I'm definitely gonna give them a listen. I'll probably start listening to them while I draw.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Cool, man. I'm gonna wrap it up. Do you want to give a shout out to your art page?
Yeah. So the name of the page, at least for now, is Joel's Art Picks with underscores in between each word. So JOELS _ART _PICKS. I know it's kind of long and not that catchy, but it'll do for now.
All right, man. I'm going to go check it out right now.
Hell yeah.
Cool. All right, brother. I'll talk to you soon, all right?
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, of course. It was a pleasure.
All right, man.
Peace.
See ya.